Frollo is the app that several thousand single parents say has been life-changing for them in the most profound way. If you're a single parent and want to connect with other single parents and open yourself up to an amazing support network and new experiences, then the Frollo app is the one for you. The Frollo app has two modes: community mode for meetups and holidays, guidance and support, chats, and discovery to make it easy to find like-minded local single parents near you. Dating mode is a mindful, safe, and respectful dating offering where everybody is there to date another single parent. All users on Frollo are verified, putting our user safety first always. The Frollo app is free to download and use, with the option to upgrade to premium for access to lots of additional premium features for an elevated experience, which makes it easier than ever to access the incredible connections and experiences you're looking for. To download Frollo, search for Frollo, Frollo, on the App or Google Play Store, or go to www.frollo.com for more info. We can't wait to see you on the app soon. Hi, I'm Zoe Desmond, the founder of Frollo, the award-winning app for single parents that features both community and dating modes. And I'm also co-author, along with my wonderful friend Rebecca Cox, that I made through Frollo, of the book How to Be a Happy Single Parent. This season of the Frollo podcast features a series of conversations that include wisdom and guidance from some of the wonderful experts and single parents that feature in our book. Welcome to the Frollo podcast. This week's episode, we have the amazing Natalye-Marrie, who has just been such a huge supporter of Frollo and really what I think of as our kind of in-house Frollo financial expert and one of our amazing contributors to our book, How to Be a Happy Single Parent. So Natalye-Marrie, thank you so much for joining me today for this week's episode.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Natalye-Marrie, so you have done some fantastic meetups and blog posts, as well as being an amazing contributor for the book, but amazing meetups and blog posts for the Frollo community. And the feedback has always been so fantastic. And people are really, really touched and moved by your own story of how you came to be doing this work that you're doing. So I think that would be a really perfect place to start to get an insight into your journey as a single parent and this work you're doing as a financial expert.
So as a single mum, I think all of us can say we never expect to be single parents at all. Well, a lot of us anyway. So I never expected to be a single parent. And so when I became one, it was because I just couldn't take it anymore in the relationship and just going through all the abuse, but particularly the financial abuse, which I didn't realize I was going through until long afterwards. But due to the financial abuse and the mismanagement of my own finances, I became homeless 10 years ago. At the time, my children were 4 and 2 years old. And I didn't really have much family support. So it was just like I had to go to a hostel, and that became my home for the next 3 years. And I guess it was bittersweet, the hostel, because part of it was like, okay, I had my own kind of self-contained room, and it was like a bathroom with a cooker and stuff. But at the same time, like there was stuff going on in the hostel. If it was just for women and children, there was some women who were still bringing in like their ex-partners. You could still hear the abuse going on. But at the same time, I just hit rock bottom. I was just like, I was tired of pretending that things were going well. And I remember when I used to go to church, someone asked me, how are you? And I just thought, I'm just going to be really honest. I was like, I'm not doing well. I'm homeless. I'm living in a hostel. I haven't got 2 pennies to rub together. But just being honest, I think it was being honest with myself and pretending to everyone else that things weren't okay, that people actually started helping me. So someone sent me to this free, like really basic budgeting course called Christians Against Poverty. And they were doing like one night a week in my local library at the time. So I was going there. And so I was like, okay, learning how to budget. But at the same time, every time I got to the end of my budget and when I did my calculations, it was always a minus figure. Like it was like I had more going out than I did coming in. And then I was led to this book by David Ramsey, The Total Money Makeover. And I started reading about, like, there was a few case studies in there of single moms, and they'd kind of sold everything. And I was like, well, I can't sell my stuff because it's in storage because I'm in a hostel. And so from there, I started learning about personal finance, right? I started learning about budgeting. I started learning about saving. I started learning about investing. But one thing was learning about how to make money. And it was like, I don't have any capital to kind of build a business. So let me start with everyone. When I was reading about business and the successful people in business, they always came from really broken backgrounds. And so they always spoke about starting from where they were, like, what do I have now? And at the time I was making my own products for hair and skin, and they were working for my kids, and a few of my friends were using it. It was working for them. So I started selling a little bit to the people around me just so I can make some money, because I wanted to pay for a market stall to sell my stuff, and I wanted to get all my products together. So I started doing that, and then I did some research and I realized that I had to get my products tested. And I didn't have the money for that. At the time, it was like between £200 and £300 to get each product tested. And so I was like, okay, how am I going to overcome this? And if you read, and I'm always like telling like my followers, like always like follow people who look like you, but also have similar backgrounds to you, because they will always be explicit in their story. Not like what's going on now, like I can make £1 million in like 4 months. Do you know what I mean? Like ridiculous stuff. Like for every success story, there's always 10 years of like challenges and struggle that person went through. And so when I looked at my situation, I was like, okay, this is an obstacle. People I've researched, they've had obstacles too. So let me figure out how am I going to overcome this? And I realized that, okay, I can't sell these as really nice products, but I can sell these as ingredients. So instead of mixing my shea butter with all these oils, how about I just sell my shea butter separately along with the oils separately? Then I won't have to get them tested. I can just label them and sell them. So that's how I overcome that testing obstacle, was just selling them as ingredients. And I don't know if you heard of like Vistaprints. It's really like back in the day, cheap place, you get your business cards. I designed my logo at the time, and I sent my logo off to Vista so they can put it on a t-shirt. I'd pay for the market stall, put all my stuff in this like tattered suitcase, and I'm lugging it away to the market stall. And I am like really embarrassed because I'm homeless, right? I'm living in a hostel. And I'm coming to this marketplace. So it's not like imposter syndrome. It's like I feel inferior. Like I'm already dealing with low self-esteem issues with the stuff I'm going off. My kid's dad, I'm homeless. I don't feel worthy. And then I'm seeing other women who are doing a market stall, and they're doing natural products, and they've got products, something that I couldn't afford to do. I had to sell ingredients. I'm selling it in like these plastic containers with this homemade label on that I created in my bathroom. And, but that day I made £300, Zoe, and people were really, I realized looking back, I didn't realize then, but in hindsight, looking back, I was telling people my story. Like I was literally telling them why I had done this. Well, because there was no products for Afro hair at that time on the market. Now the market's just, there's loads of stuff going on, but back then there wasn't. So that was kind of my story. And so people were really invested in it. And so from there, I learned how to build a website by myself. I learned coding, HTML. I knew how to build an e-commerce store by myself. And I was on benefits at the time. So I was eligible to study at my local college for free. And I was like, okay, let me choose a course that would make sense to my side hustle. So I went into beauty therapy, and I became a qualified beauty therapist. And even then, like, I didn't know anything about business, but now I know, like, about niche, right? So I was going into my college thinking, like, okay, all of the women in my class, they're going to do everything, waxes, whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different. Let me go be a specialist in something that I love. And I was really good at facials. I remember when I was first getting assessed on my facial, my tutor at the time said, everyone thinks you just look like a professional. Like you just been doing it for years. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go into. I'm going to specialize in facials. And so I started telling everyone. But that's kind of how I managed to, because I learned at that point about debt. And at that point, I just learned that debt was bad, and to get rid of everything that you owe, like pay off credit cards. If you owe like something on the car, like sell it to pay off that loan. And I did have a HP payment on my car, but I didn't want to sell it because on the weekends I'd be able to take my kids to the beach. It's just a different scenery from the hostel, and it was giving me hope that I've got this independence where I can just jump in a car and go wherever I wanted. So the side hustle really was to have a little bit of fun money to pay off extra off my debts, like to pay more than a minimum payment, and to maintain my car. I needed, like, that was what was going through me at the time. And I couldn't go back into full-time work because my son wasn't at school at the time. And the reason I had to leave my job in the first place is because the abuse that was going on with their dad, which is a whole nother story. So that's kind of how my story, in terms of like how I got into this whole personal finance. And then when my son started school, I managed to get a job that was like school hours, 10 to 1, perfect. And then after my son went into year 1, then I got a full-time job, and I was making around £800 a week. And I was like, okay, I can really go into my debts now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I kind of just put the side hustle to one side.
What was that full-time job?
Oh, that was just me being an accountant. I went back to being an accountant, not full-time, I'm not fully qualified, I'm part qualified. At that point, I just found studying accountancy boring. And I was just like, I'm going to do it another way. I'm going to be loyal to myself, not to the employer. And I'm going to upskill. So what I did was, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I was just this networking genius. Like, I was networking within my company. I would come into a company, and the 3-month probation, I'd really go in, like really know my role inside out, because I knew that the next 9 to 12 months after that, I'm going to focus on networking around my team, the people who were senior to me, so that they could teach me what they do. So I'm learning on the job while I'm getting paid. I'm doing work that's beyond my pay grade. So on my CV, I'd have the skills of a qualified accountant, but not the qualification. And I kind of knew in this country, everywhere else I'd need an ACCA or a CIMA. But in this country, I knew that all they were looking for was my skills. And because I was already AAT qualified, they kind of just said, okay, she's qualified in some accounting. And that's how I managed to negotiate a 6-figure salary in the middle of a pandemic.
Natalye, you are like just, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of almost finding it hard to find words. You are such a force to be reckoned with, to be in that situation, you know, homeless with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, a victim of, you know, what sounds like an abusive relationship. I don't know much about your personal situation, but it sounds harrowing. And, you know, and to be able to, like, you know, move through everything without even, you know, much family support, as you said, in a hostel with your kids, which obviously not, you know, difficult situation going on there as well. And the kind of, the resilience, the determination, the hustle, the vision, you know, it's
it's really, I have so much respect for you. It's unbelievably inspiring, and like what an unbelievable role model you are to your two kids as well, and like what they're kind of seeing, you know. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's incredible. And I'd love to, obviously there's so many things I'd love to know more about, and it would be good to, because I know that a lot of people in the Frollo community are also victims of, you know, various aspects of abuse, kind of runs through lots of single parent situations. And with the financial abuse, I'd love to just have a better understanding of what that looked like for you, or what you, given your work with single parents, what are some of the kind of typical examples of financial abuse that show up?
I get that question a lot. And so I always like to go back, because it doesn't just come out of nowhere. I always find the financial abuse, it always starts really small. We're not responsible for it as the people who've been the victims of this abuse. But when you look back, usually there's some sort of trauma going on, like from our childhood. And so for me, I've always been, up until I ended that, I've always been financially abused, even in my childhood. And so in my childhood, I've been conditioned to neglect myself. And so I always find people say, oh, I've got to say yes, and I've got to help people all the time, but they always do it at the detriment of themselves. And I don't think they realize that selflessness is not something we should be achieving or should be attaining or should be striving for, because that always leads to us neglecting yourself. So when I was in a relationship with my kid's dad, like I got with him when I was really young. I was like 20. I wasn't 21 yet. And my mum had chucked me out at 18. Those last like 2 years, like I didn't even know who I was. Like I didn't, and so I'm going into a relationship. I'm being coerced to have a child as well, and I'm hyper independent. You know, I want to be able to take care of myself, and he's seeing that, and so he's using that to his advantage. And so for me, it was like the moment I started my accountancy career, I say late, but I started my accountancy career after I had my daughter. So I was 24 when I started my career. And he was he was happy for me all the way up until that point. He started my accountancy career. Then 3 months after I had started my first accountancy role, they said they were so impressed with my work, we're going to pay for your studies. So they started paying for my studies. And then during that, they're like, we're going to get you a financial advisor. They're paying a financial advisor to come in and talk to me about my finances. I'm going back to him and telling him, like, you would, like, that's your partner, right? I'm going back, they're saying this, and then it's little things like, oh, you can't afford this, your little salary, your little this, you know, those little, and I'm being triggered. I'm not realizing it's triggered. And I'm wanting to prove that I can. So I'm paying for everything. I'm paying for the rent, our daughter. We didn't have our son at the time. I'm paying for everything. Then when I fell pregnant with my son, he also runs a business. So he had this business, a hairdresser. He had this salon. And he had hired this, that's the thing about narcissists. They're not very good with money. They're not good with like contracts and stuff like that, because they're always trying to be like the big man, the big person. And so that's what he was doing. So he hired this unreliable person to refurbish his shop. I told him that this person wasn't great, but he didn't want to listen to me. That's okay. And so he hired that person, paid all of them the money up front. And that person just went off to Jamaica and didn't come back. And he didn't have any money, and I had savings. I was really good. Like I had already been in debt once at that point and managed to clear my debt off. So I was debt free at that point. All my money was saving for my son. You know, I was going to get a prom, everything, just, you know. And I really wanted to kick him out, because when I had my daughter, I didn't have that money. And so it was just kind of like basics for my daughter. But for my son, I was just like, well, I have the money. I want to kick him out. And I had to give him all those savings to pay for him to get another builder to sort the shop out. Crazy, right? Someone he's saying, so it's stuff like that. Getting loans out in his name because he's got bad credit, and I'm being left to pay for it. And at the time, there was no law for that, so I'm still paying for it. But now I know they've put a law in place that if you've been coerced into debt, you've been in an abusive situation, if you go to Citizen Advice Bureau, they'll be able to sort that out, and I'm sure they'll be able to write off the debts. But back then, that wasn't the case. I had to pay, but I was still paying it off right up until 2017, maybe 2018.
Wow. As if he didn't have enough on your plate.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, he wasn't paying maintenance, So yeah, it was. So those are the kind of things, like your partner should be, I don't believe in 50-50, but let's just say you should at least go 50-50 or at least doing percentage, you know what I mean? Like if your partner's being paid more than you, then the bill should be based on a percentage wise then, and not so much 50-50. But I do believe as a woman, he should be providing everything, but that's just another conversation for another time.
Given that this is a podcast for single parents, let's kind of hone in on that aspect of things. So you've provided some really brilliant advice in the book, and obviously on all of the meetups that you've done for Frollo as well, and your work with single parents. So what are your, I guess, top tips for single parents becoming more financially autonomous or more in control of their finances? Obviously, a lot of people, especially if becoming a single parent has sort of been, if it's not a planned thing, if it's not somebody who's becoming a solo parent by choice, or, has a timeline to work towards to get organized, it can be a very daunting thing. And there's so many things in the mix, the financial impact, burden just being one of them. So yeah, what would your top tips be for single parents feeling more empowered?
So the first thing I would do is start following people who are talking about personal finance, who you relate to. So this episode would be great, and my meetups. But at the same time, the first thing you should be doing is building an emergency fund. It's so important. Having an emergency fund eliminates the need for debt. And then you can start thinking about, when you've got that, that's your safety net. That's what helps me feel financially safe. It helps me feel financially stable because I've got that emergency fund. So I know whatever is happening, or whatever unexpected expense that may occur, I know I've covered. I have my own back. Now they usually say the rule of thumb for building an emergency fund is usually 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And so go with that. I think as you get further on in your money journey, we're always on a money journey. We're just either aware or not aware. So I guess when you become self-aware on your money journey, you will start to recognize what kind of expenses kind of crop up unexpectedly. And you'll start recognizing also your household expenses on a regular basis. And then from there, you can kind of gauge what kind of emergency fund you want. In the beginning, you want it to be 3 to 6 months. But afterwards, some people, they may have 20K, or I had a year's worth of expenses saved in my emergency fund because that's kind of what I wanted. But in the beginning, it was just very minimal. It was 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So that's something I would do. That should be the number one thing you do before anything else. And then the next thing, if you have debt, is focus on bringing that debt down, eliminating it, at least the high interest ones, with the really high interest rates, certain credit cards, some loans, store cards, overdrafts, payday loans. yeah, you want to get them, you want to eliminate them. Also, you want to learn how to budget as well. And you can be really fancy about your budget. It depends. I always say when I speak with my clients, like, no, you have to know who you are. And maybe it may take a few trials and errors for you to go through different kind of budgets to kind of feel out what's for me. But your budget, I always say, your budget needs to be goal focused. That's what for me. So, and your goal is going to change. There's different seasons. So, if you go back to my story in the beginning, my home was about debt. That was my main focus. It was getting rid of my debt and maintaining my car that I had. So it meant that my budget was geared towards that. You'd see all of my disposable income go towards my debt. And so your budget should be goal focused. Also with your budget, yes, you've got your goal focus, but also know your why behind your goals as well. So why are you doing this? Why do you want an emergency fund? Why do you want to invest? Why do you want more money? Why do you want to buy a house? These financial goals, they need to have your why. Healing as well. What is your relationship with money? These things are really, because I could give you a whole top tips like track your expenses and always look at your bank account. But if you're having anxiety about looking at your bank account, then that's what we need to focus on.
I was just going to say, that was going to be my next question, actually. What about the kind of mindset and emotional relationship with money? Because I know that, even for myself, sometimes I just choose to bury my head in the sand so much because it's so uncomfortable to sometimes look at the reality of what I'm doing and how I'm not sort of really being, very kind of, I guess, aware, just my level of awareness about what's happening or what I'm doing. So, and I would imagine it's the same for a lot of us. So yeah, what do you see? Are there any examples you can share about the emotional or things that come up in terms that aren't conducive to, financial management, or some of the kind of mindsets that, don't work for us or could work for us?
I always feel like there's so many mindset hacks, I guess, and it all depends on the person. And for me, I don't know, it seems really long and a slow journey, but you want to build a foundation that you're not always you don't want to be 1 minute you're okay. It's like losing weight, right? If you keep going on those fad diets, your weight's going to go up and down all the time. But if you focus on lifestyle changes, then you're going to go, once you've implemented that, you're just going to go into maintenance mode. You're just purely maintaining. And that's how I like to come to finances. It's about you're building a foundation, and then from there you should be growing. And sometimes it's going to go up and down because, like life, it's not linear. So for me, it's always about healing. I get clients who overspend, and that's my forte because, gosh, I was a big overspender. I'd overspend. I'd spend money when I was happy, bored, upset, angry, depressed. Any kind of emotion, I'm spending money. And what I find is just through doing my own work and my own healing, that I realized when it came to my clients as well, is that they were just avoiding ourselves. We don't want to face ourselves. Like, why are you feeling bored? That's, let's sit down. Let's think about that. Why are you upset? Let's sit down. It's about holding space for your emotions. And that's why I to go back about the financial abuse. I find people who are in that are usually people who are selflessness. They're so kind to a fault. It's a detriment to themselves because they're really neglecting themselves. So holding space is the start of you loving yourself and you allowing those emotions to come up and being able to sit with them and ask yourself, what's going on for me right now? why am I feeling like this? Because the more you use money as a distraction, the worse it becomes. And if you've got a goal, but you're continually spending money that's not in alignment with that goal, you're going to just give up, which is what most people do. And you hear things like, oh, I just can't do it. That's just not for me. That's never going to be for me. I tried it and it didn't work. Or I tried working to that goal, it didn't work out for me. And it's just like, yeah, because you're too busy focusing on symptoms. Let's get to the root cause. Let's start looking inwards instead of outwards. And that's how I really deal with the finances. So with the overspending, journal. You can use a notebook to journal. I like using my phone on the voice notes. I feel like voice is the most powerful vibration. So when I release that energy that I'm working through, I find in a day or two, I'm healed. Like, I'm not even dealing with that anymore. I've just gone up to the next level. So I really do like voice, but it just means, but that's because I know myself. I used to do writing journaling, and now it's just growth. So now I've just moved on. Another thing as well is sometimes I get clients who want to make more money, but are scared to make more money because they're scared of the sacrifice it will take for them to do it. And that's, again, goes back to childhood. They may have seen their mum make money and their mum hit the glass ceiling or went beyond it, actually. But what it meant for them as a child is that their mum wasn't as present as they needed them to be. And they don't want to do that with their own children. And so it's just kind of dispelling those things like, okay, but we can do it think about doing it in a different way. Like, there isn't one way to make money. There's loads of ways to make money. I'm no longer working 9 to 5. I work 4 to 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday. Like, that's perfect for me. It means I can still show up for my kids. So it's just putting out new ideas.
That in itself must be, a mindset thing instead of, I can't, or it won't work, or, of kind of, no, it can work. I can fit this into my life. So, that kind of, I guess, anything is possible mindset, as opposed to, yeah, but this wouldn't work for me. So it's a dead end. And I guess just thinking about, what single parents have been, in the last couple of years, especially with the cost of living crisis and all of that, it's more important than ever for single parents to have tips and tricks to, save or reduce costs. Are there any particular websites or apps or hacks that you can share that would be helpful?
So I use firstly I use like a cashback site app called Top Cashback, and I've actually paid the annual fee. It's £5 a year because any issues they sort it, and you get a higher percentage, like a discount, more money towards you. So I did that, and what that does is you go through the app to get to the website you wanna spend on. And so it means that on most of my purchases, I get cash back. And then I can just save it up. And then when I'm ready, transfer it into my bank account. I think right now we need to kind of move away from cutting costs. It's because all costs are rising. It's really difficult. And I'd start looking at ways to make money. That's where I would look at. You can either think about moving jobs, like look at your role and your industry and other industries and see what they're paying, and maybe move your role, because that's what I did. I went from working from PR firms to Damien Hirst to politicians to actually I'm going to go into equity and investment because that's where the money is and I'm going to get paid more. Just doing the same thing. So there's that. And I guess if you want to minimize your costs, it's always have a budget in place so you're in control of your finances. Give every penny a job. As well as looking at your spending behaviors as well. Like if you're doing a food shop, I love doing this one, write your list down. Don't go to the food shop hungry. Look in your kitchen, write a list, write down your meals and what ingredients you need, and then take your list to the supermarket. Don't go to the supermarket when you're hungry. Do not go without a list. I like to go first thing in the morning on a Friday or Saturday morning because there's no one there. It means I can just get in and out and I'm not distracted, especially by the middle aisle in Aldi or Lidl. Do you know what? Change providers. You can still do that now. Like, I did an email last week to my subscribers, but I was talking about my son. He does MMA. Well, he was doing MMA, which is mixed martial arts. And I wanted to increase his, because he wants to take it seriously. So I wanted to increase the amount he goes from once a week to 2 or 3 times a week. And once a week, we was paying £45 a month, and twice a week would have been like around £80 a month. And when I was speaking to the guy, anyway, I didn't really like the way he was coming at me. So I spoke to my son, I said, let's try and find somewhere else to go. And he was like, Mum, I actually want to do Taekwondo. So I found a Taekwondo, and he's going twice a week for £40 a month across a house. So I've cut my cost by half, and he's going double than where he was. So people are still doing things for a reasonable price. You just have to really do your research. You can still change over utilities, mobile phone. I'm with a mobile phone. I won't advertise them on here, but because I've been with them for so long, and my kids I've taken a contract out with them as well. It just means that I get discounted on my bills. I get 30% every month on my mobile phone bill for the whole family. So there are things you can do. You just have to research. It's why I say, like, finance is boring, because you have to sit down and do the life admin, which I do not like either. But when you do it, you start seeing the holes in your finances, and then you start reclaiming that money back, and then you start being more, as you said, aware about your finances, not burying your head in the sand. I'd say just take it one thing at a time. If this month you just want to focus on changing utility providers, then just do it.
That's a good suggestion, actually, a way to tackle it, which we talk about in the book as well. At the beginning of the book, we refer to the list, which is like, just get it all out of your head, everything you need to tackle when you become a single parent, in terms of finances, childcare, living arrangements, all of that stuff. And with finances as well, to make it feel less overwhelming, and a job that you might never start, maybe breaking it down into chunks and going, right, this month it's X, Y, and Z. Next month it's whatever. But my final question to you today is about our kids. So what can we do as parents, as single parents, to really kind of teach our kids the financial responsibility? Like, what are some of the things that we can be doing to help prepare our kids to be, responsible with finances through their childhoods, and so to be ready to tackle the world as a responsible, person from a financial respect when they're older?
Yeah, I treat my children know everything about my income, and I mean everything. And how I do that is, whenever I get paid, I budget, and it's a family affair. We'll sit down and I'll say, okay, I've just got paid this, and this is where I'm going to put the finances. What do you guys need this month? We sit down together as a family, and I budget with them, and I let them know where every penny is going. And then I also say to them, what is it you want? What do you guys need this month? Some things I'll be like, go and message your dad. And some things I'll be like, okay, I'll take care of it. I'm really particular about the language I use. like, if they need anything and it's a bit out of my budget for the month or out my budget for now, I never say I can't afford it. I just say it'll have to wait, because right now this is what I'm working with. And so give me till then, and then I'll do it, or we'll be able to get it done. That's how I talk to my children. I don't use the word "we're broke." We can't have that. Those words are detrimental to our children. And I feel like they will then go off and feel as though they can't afford to do anything. I don't ever want them to feel that way. So I choose my words wisely. Also with my children, because yes, I invest. That's one of my vehicles that I use to reach financial freedom. They also know how to invest as well, and they have their own investing accounts, so they know how to do that. So the first thing I would say is just get them involved in the finances. When they were younger, we used to do really basic, like shopping. This is how much I bring cash. I mean, this is how much mummy's got for cash. This is our list. And they would go around the supermarket, as most kids do. Can I get this? Well, this is how much, this is our list, this is what we've got. So do you think there's enough room for that? And then you start seeing them negotiating. Well, what if I don't have this week?
My example of that actually is, so my son has an obsession with trainers. Trainers are his favorite thing in the world. Well, apart from football.
Yeah.
Trainers are his favorite thing. So he really, that's what he'll ask for his birthday, or, from Santa. And his granny gave him money to go towards trainers recently. And so I took him around a bunch of shops, and we went into the first shop and he goes, I want these ones. And I said, how much do you love them? And he goes, I really like them. And I said, but are you in love with them? And he said, I'm 95% in love with them. And I said, right, we're going to another shop. And so I traipsed him around to all of these different trainer shops, because I want, I wanted them to know, like, yeah. And he goes, God, you are really serious about this. And I said, I am, because you have a certain amount of money to spend, and it's a big decision. And I said, so make sure that you get the ones you want and that you're fully in love with them. Don't waste the money on something that isn't exactly what you want. And if you don't find exactly what you want, we'll save it, because I promise you the pair of trainers that you will want will turn up. And, it was interesting, exactly as you said with your son in the supermarket. I saw that he started to then adopt this mindset, and he was looking and he was going, oh God, do I want these ones? He's like, no, do you know what? I'm going to hold off. I think there might be, so it's a silly example, but it was interesting seeing his perspective even just change in that exercise towards being frivolous and going, yeah, I'll just have whatever the first thing that comes along, to the decision making around it.
Exactly. And just that example alone, Zoe, is that you're showing him your values, your family values. I feel like even though we're single parents, we're still family, right? And we still have our values. And it's another thing with the finance with my children, is that they know what our values are. We live a very minimalistic lifestyle. I don't get too much on things, but I spend a lot of money on experiences, holidays and stuff. I will not bat an eyelid how much it costs. But when it comes to clothes and stuff, I'm just like, no, we can find this the same quality, but elsewhere. And I like speaking to my children about goals every year, beginning of the year, and then every 2-3 months, I'll see how you get on with your goals. So for instance, my daughter, she's a musician, she's in music school. And so every year it's like, what do you want to achieve this year? And she'll tell me, I want lessons for piano or vocal lessons or whatever. And we were able to make it happen through some funding and through some that I was paying for. Then my son, he wants to be a gamer. He wants to be a commentary. And I know that he needed a laptop. So I got him a laptop because he was proven to me that he was serious about this. But then he said he wants an editing package. And I'm just like, okay, that's like £100. But I need to see you consistent on YouTube. Because I'm not otherwise just use Clipchamp. It comes with the laptop. But it's just getting them to think about the worth of £1, how much it actually costs, and what's needed in order to bring that money into your hand. So, and you're doing the same with your son. It's not a silly example. It's everything about that, because you're having a discussion with him. He's coming to a decision on his own, which is great. You're not having to force it. You're just like, actually, let's go. And then he's seeing the why just by being part of that. Yeah. And so it makes them, like you said, not be frivolous with the money and think before they spend. Another thing I want to say, it's like community as well. Like, I know in Western society, we're very much like individualism. And I feel like other cultures come together, and I feel like as single parents, we should try and come together more. Like if you've got single parent friends and you all want the same goal, I don't know what it is. Like maybe you all want to be able to get more money so you can buy a house. Why don't you all invest together to buy that one house, get the proceeds?
I know. I often hear this come up, and actually me and a bunch of my Frollo friends often fantasize about a Frollo commune, which would be actually a really nice way to live and a really fun way to live. So I'm on board.
Yeah.
We need to, maybe we can do something with that, Natalye-Marrie.
Yeah.
Well, Natalie, I thank you so much, as always, for just being such just so inspiring and such a big supporter of single parents. And I've loved chatting with you as always. And so where can everyone find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram called The Prosperous Mother. And you can find me on TikTok, Natalye-Marrie.official on TikTok. And you can find me on Facebook, Natalye-Marrie, and you'll see my group attached to my profile.
Amazing. And I know that you've done, as I said, some brilliant expert virtual meetups on Frollo. And I know you're planning on setting one up for sometime in the next few weeks. So whoever is listening, get onto the Frollo app and go to the meetup section. And by the time this episode is released, it will be up there. So yes, Natalye-Marrie, thank you so much. I've loved today's conversation and excited to keep collaborating.
Amazing. Me too. Thank you for having me, Zoe.
And that's a wrap for this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then I have one small favour to ask. Please can you take a minute to subscribe to the Frollo podcast and give us a rating and review. This really helps other single parents who might benefit from it find us. The Frollo app, which is fully user verified for user safety, is available on the Google Play Store and the App Store, and you can find out more info and download links at www.frollo.com or follow us on Instagram at Frollo app. My co-host on this series of the Frollo podcast and co-author of the book How to Be a Happy Single Parent, Rebecca Cox, is on Instagram at Single Mother Edit. And you can purchase your copy of our book, How to Be a Happy Single Parent, at all the major book retailers. Until next time, have a great week.